Hola, welcome, hello, how are you doing? Here we are, what's the date? 12th of January 2022 here in New Zealand. Welcome, chat with Matt, half an hour or so to talk about whatever might be going on for you here in the Bright Light Beings group. Good morning, Sister Jane, or good evening for you over there in the UK. I am just trying to sort myself out here. It's always a little bit interesting. Here we go. Chat with Matt. Freedom is attained via acceptance. And there I was outside Hopeless Hut. Sister Debbie wrote in DOC, which is the Department of Conservation here in New Zealand. I'm glad you're washing the dishes. What a great thing to do. What a great thing to do, Jane. Washing dishes. DOC comes up with some interesting hut names. That hut is actually under Mount Hopeless, and I believe Mount Hopeless was named by the very famous Mr. Edmund Hillary, or Sir Edmund Hillary, who was the first man to make it to the South Pole, a New Zealander. Oh no, not the first man to make it to the South Pole, first man to climb Mount Everest. Let's get our history right. But anyway, a very famous mountaineer. He's even was on the $5 note. Have we still got a $5 note? I haven't seen a $5 note forever. I think it's gone, right? Is that true? Oh, how would I know? Maybe not. That's it. We're becoming cashless, which is a bit scary, really. That's another conversation. But anyway, Hopeless Hut is under Mount Hopeless. If you, it's down there in the Nelson Lakes area, and it's a very, very rocky area. It's if you look out the window of Mount Hopeless Hut, you might understand why it's called Hopeless Hut. It looks into a massive scree slide. Anyway, freedom is attained via acceptance. One of my words for this year is freedom. The other one is flexibility. I tend to work with a couple of words every year. Hey, Sister Michelle. To help me stay on track about what's important. Of course, I do modify as the year progresses and stuff, but rather than setting intentions at the start of the year and stuff, I like to sort of meditate and come up with what sort of core values or core attributes am I really intending to make progress with. I have been working with this vibration of fun for several years, and to be honest, I think I kind of failed with that. I think I had intentions every year for about the last 4 years to bring more fun into my life, and I never really, well, I guess I did in some ways, but I didn't really satisfy myself in that way. I never really attained the vision for myself that I had. So I've let that go for a little while. I do intend coming back to fun. But because, we just have to be realistic sometimes, and there's no point beating your head against the wall if you're not making good progress. Freedom is something that is very topical and very important to me, and it is sort of the pathway into fun, because if you're not feeling free to be yourself, right, then you're not really going to make fun on this rather hectic journey we call life. Anyway. And the other one being flexibility that I'm intending to work with, because I recognize more and more that to be free means to be flexible in your attitude. Flexible in your attitude it's to find that level of acceptance that things aren't in the box that you might have had, the rigidity that you were expecting as an outcome. If you hold on to that rigidity of what your outcome looks like, and can't accept what you currently have, then you are not going to be free. And so flexibility to adjust, adapt, and accommodate to the current conditions and what is, right, to find acceptance around what is very foundational to being happy and thus feeling free, or being free and thus feeling happy, whichever way you want to put those two words. Obviously, they don't actually flow in order. Freedom and happiness sort of run together, much like love and freedom. They are intertwined, interconnected very deeply. Anyway, freedom is attained via acceptance. A post from several years ago when I walked up to Hopeless Hut and actually walked up over what's called Sunset Saddle, there which is between Hopeless and another mountain. I can't remember the mountain on the other side of Hopeless, and down to Angelo's hut, which is one of the highest huts in that area. But anyway, that was a walk I did with my good friend, brother Tim, several years ago. Anyways, Michelle asked, "Hi Matt, can you speak on how to overcome the overwhelming, depressing mood and loneliness for those living alone during the last year?" Okay, well, firstly, I think, Michelle, this is a very common question, very common experience that many people are experiencing overwhelming depression in their mood cycles at the moment, not just those living alone. And many people are feeling very lonely at the moment, not just those living alone as well. In some ways, living alone gives you a good excuse for feeling depressed and lonely, and it might actually be, hello, sweetheart, a baby blackbird or a baby thrush. I'm not quite sure. I think it might actually be a blackbird. It's hard to tell when they're babies. They both look very similar, thrushes and blackbirds, when they're babies. I'm pretty sure that's a baby blackbird, female. Anyway, in some ways, having the excuse of living alone can help you to deal with feeling depressed and lonely. Although it might not help you get out of it, it gives you a good excuse for feeling that way. Those of us who are not alone can feel even more wrong about being depressed and feeling lonely when you're not actually alone. But the truth is, many people who are not alone in physical life, right, they have a family around them, are still feeling very lonely and quite depressed. So I'm not going to close the door on them either in answering your question. It is true. So how do we overcome overwhelming depression? I think we have to first of all come to the understanding that what appears to be or is labeled as overwhelming is a choice, right? Overwhelm is an experience where we overwhelm is a label that we apply to a situation where we're experiencing more than we're comfortable with. Overwhelming is not absolute. Overwhelming is very, very individual. What is overwhelming for one person will be a walk in a park for another person, in all ranges of emotion, right? So people can be overwhelmed in joy, and other people can be very comfortable in that level of joy. People can be overwhelmed in depression, and other people can be very comfortable in that level of depression because they're used to it. Overwhelm is just beyond what you are used to. So it's important to remember that and not make the experience of overwhelm bigger than it needs to be. It just means you've gone further into something than you are used to. So many of us are experiencing depressive moods or the feeling of density, right, which is really what it is, the feeling of density more intensely than we ever had before. That is a symptom of the fact that we are changing more quickly right now than we ever have before. The process of transformation is occurring very rapidly right now, and that is bringing with it a level of intensity around what we are purifying from. Many of us are purifying from density. Basically, hard energies, feelings of grief, feelings of not good enough, low self-worth, repression, right? Being repressed, being abused, traumatic experiences. Many of us have these vibrations in our field from the past that have not yet been released, not yet been processed, so that we can allow them to disintegrate, allow them to dissolve, allow them to not maintain their status as something that we need to address, right? So many of us have traumas around being abused and suppressed in our past, right? We've been on this planet for many thousands of years and it's been very dark. And so many of us are carrying these vibrations. And right now, as the vibration is lifting, believe it or not, the vibration is lifting, we are actually progressing into more light. A lot of this stuff is coming to the surface to be cleared away. What we are feeling is what we are releasing. This is my go-to mantra to get me through situations like what you speak of, feeling overwhelmingly depressed and lonely. What we are feeling is what we are releasing. This is how I perceive it to be progressing. Oh, thank you, Audra. I'm glad you enjoy the shirt. It's actually quite a good shirt. It's right down the bottom. It says "Wired to the Cosmos," and it's a picture of all of the nadis. My Swiss ball just rolled away on me. So yeah, I'm wired to the cosmos, and it is a beautiful color. And I still remember a good friend of mine, well, a friend from the past, Mohan, from my yoga days, bought this back from India for me. So it's reasonably old. This is probably around 2009, 2010, somewhere around that. I was gifted this shirt, so it is. I wore it out the other night, so it was still relatively clean, and it was lying there, and I thought, I'll put that on. That's not a colour that I've worn lately. I have a habit of wearing pretty much the same 3 t-shirts day in, day out on rotation. So yeah, that can look a bit, especially if the same day keeps falling when I'm doing a live stream. It looks like I just have 1 t-shirt, and really I have at least 3. No, I have a whole drawer full of t-shirts. I have more t-shirts than I need. I just don't go there very often. Creature of habit, and I'm reasonably lazy and not particularly concerned about how I look for myself, but here we go. I'm in the public eye, so I made an effort and it was noticed. Well done, thank you, Audra. Anyway, getting back on topic. So how do we cope, right? Can you speak on how to overcome? So this idea of overcoming it, this is an interesting idea, and I think this is where many of us fall over, Michelle, in trying to overcome these overwhelming sensations. I think a better terminology to use is how do we accept? How do we accept and how do we relax into what we are experiencing rather than thinking that we need to stop feeling that way in order to be happy? I know we've been trained into believing that if I'm feeling these dense vibrations, then that precludes me from being happy. These are perceived to be the opposite of happiness. But is that really true, right? Or have we just been trained to believe that if we're feeling sad, if we're feeling depressed, if we're feeling hopeless, then we're not happy? And that happiness is something that is just aligned with joy, just aligned with high vibration, right? Just aligned with comfort. Well, comfort's an interesting word too, right? Comfort is just, what you are comfortable with. And many people have found comfort with deeper vibrations, darker vibrations, denser vibrations. Now, I'm not saying we should all just, well, I am pretty much saying we should all just find a degree of acceptance that I'm in a depressive mood, right? And be prepared to stay there for as long as it takes. Because if we're prepared to stay there for as long as it takes, and we're not trying, I've got an itchy nose now, if we're not trying to overcome them, then we stop fighting against it. And an interesting thing happens when we stop fighting against a vibration that we're feeling. If we stop making ourselves wrong for feeling depressed or lonely or anxious or frustrated or angry, if we stop making that wrong, then the energy tends to shift quite quickly. Hey, Brother Lewis, and I saw Audra, Jodelle. Hey, welcome. So I'm talking about how to overcome overwhelming, depressing mood and loneliness for those living alone during the last years. I'll put an S on the end there for you, Michelle, because it has been years now. So the way forward is to accept that what you're feeling is not wrong, to accept that what you're feeling is what you are releasing, and to accept that it'll be with you for as long as it benefits you. If you maintain a belief that you will feel something for as long as it is beneficial to feel it, then you automatically feel that you're being purposeful in experiencing a depressive state, right? Loneliness, sadness, anger, frustration, whatever it might be that feels discordant and is judgeable. This is the point. It's judgeable based on what we've been trained to believe is right or wrong. And society has been very, very strict, I'll use that word, on training us to believe that low vibrational moods are wrong. Because people who are in low vibrational moods aren't so purposeful, aren't so productive is a better word. Purposeful is not the right word to use there. Aren't so productive. They're not good cogs in the machine. They don't want to go to work. Society wants you to go to work because they want you to earn money so that you can pay tax, right? And I know that might sound conspiratorial, but that's basically the truth, right? Society wants you to be a cog in the machine. Your whole education system, you've been brought up to be productive, and you've been brought up to be a consumer. Depressed people don't consume much either. They don't go to dinner, they don't go to shows, they don't partake in the consumerist society. Depressed people. So depression's been made very wrong, and you should go to the doctor and get a tablet if you feel depressed, and they will help you get back into soldiering on and going to work and partaking in consumerism. I'm not a communist, by the way. But so the point is to let go of this label that depression is somehow wrong, so that you can be or experience the depression in a purposeful way, right? What you're feeling is what you are releasing. You're actually becoming free from vibrations of suppression that you've been carrying from the past, right? This idea that the authorities are keeping you under control, that you're carrying from the past. You know this inherently, and yet one of the reasons you're so depressed is that you're experiencing it yet again. Right? Our authorities are trying very hard to keep us suppressed, to keep us controlled. And so many of us who have a soul that desires to be free are feeling rather uneasy in the current situation, where once again the delusion that we're living in a democracy is being shattered in the external world, and it's very obvious to us that we're living in a totalitarian, maybe not a dictatorship, but basically, not a free society. We're not living in a free society. Our governments are not, in the most part, acting on behalf of the populace who supposedly voted them in, right? They're not actually representing most of us on the planet right now. They are puppets to a corporate agenda, the higher elite, right? So it's quite common to feel a little bit sad about that, to be a bit angry, to be a bit hopeless, to feeling a bit hopeless that yet again, here we are. And we've got this interesting disparity between the vibration that's coming in, that's exciting our soul and really encouraging us to be creative and expansive and expressive as the being that we be, and the realization that we're living in a situation that is not really giving us the opportunity to really entertain that as easily as we would like, right? We would like it to be easier to be ourselves, and yet we're experiencing all of this repression from the external right now. So this differential makes us feel quite uneasy, quite uncomfortable. And so you have good reason for feeling depressive moods and loneliness, right? And many of us who are breaking free or choosing to be a little bit more free from the controlling narrative, right? We're not buying into it so comfortably, so easily, are feeling very alone on the planet right now. And again, the agenda is going to great lengths to make us feel alone, quoting statistics that are not quite correct about this and that, to make it look like the majority of the population is happy and going along with what they are dictating. Not necessarily the truth, but they're using the media to achieve this, right? And we're watching it, and it's easy to feel a little bit depressed about that. So first of all, to overcome the overwhelming depression, It's to recognize that you don't need to overcome it. You just need to relax through it, and you will find yourself expanding out beyond it. So rather than overcoming it, we pretty much relax out of being overly influenced by it. It's still there, but it's not our totality anymore. We allow it to be present because it's benefiting us. The depression, right? The density. Now, I know what you mean. Overwhelming depression basically means I don't have the energy to get out and do anything, right? And I'm feeling stuck in inertia. So how do we help ourselves through the experience? What we are feeling to release is actually overly influencing our opportunity and our actions in moments. So for me, it's about doing things that I know are supportive. It's not easy to maintain the discipline to actually step into the actions that help when we're feeling overwhelmingly depressed. This is the point, right? So when we're in this overwhelming depression, which we can help to shift by changing our perception and our perspective to the situation, right? If we don't make it so wrong that we're feeling depressed, then it doesn't seem to be so overwhelming. When we believe that what we're feeling is what we are releasing, we can see and feel and trust that there's a purpose to what we are feeling, which also helps us to overcome it, right? To not be so lost in the experience of it, right? So with those little helps of just modifying our perspective on the situation, we can come to the point where we can choose to act in a way that will help us shift the biological experience, right? The chemistry that's in our brain that is perpetuating these low states of mood, right? Because depressive mood is basically a mental state that is very much running in the chemistry of the brain, right? The dopamine receptors, etc., have become numb to, various things are going on, right? I'm not going to get into it because I'll probably mess it up. So, but the point is, these are states of being that they can, measure. They are actual. It's not just it is a very physical thing, right? Just as physical as having your leg broken. When you're in a depressed mood, you have a state of chemistry going on. Of course, the chemistry can be changed, just like everything can be changed. And of course, it is basically following the energy. So ways to help, right, can come down to what foods we're choosing to eat, can come down to how much we're choosing to breathe and how we're choosing to breathe, right? Shifting our nervous system response through conscious use of breath, exercise, getting the blood flowing definitely helps. Don't know why my reception dropped out. Doing things that we find satisfying will also help. That can be all sorts of things, from doing craft and creative pursuits, right? A lot of people use conscious coloring to deal with depression, right? As an example, other people are more freeform and they'll actually use art, whether that be drawing, painting, singing, playing music, listening to music can definitely help lift our moods. Hey, Brother Rich. There are all sorts of things that we can do when we recognize our mood levels are low. But the important thing to do is to recognize you're doing this not because having a low mood level is wrong, right? But to recognize that if you can help yourself by lifting your mood, you will move through the releasing process more quickly rather than to allow yourself to be stuck in what is overwhelming you. For me, exercise is key, right? And I like to walk fast uphill till I'm really get my heart rate going. And during which I'm using mantras and affirmations to lift my mood. I like to, even just repeating the word yes as I'm walking up a hill. Yes, 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 I can, right? And then other ones that I use is like, as I breathe in, empowered, as I breathe out, freedom, right? I'm choosing to attain my freedom in an empowered way. I'm walking up a hill, I'm breaking free, right? So whatever it might be, I'm not sure what's going on in your part of the world, but maybe getting an exercise bike and just getting on the bike in front of, if you want to put on some comedy or something on the television, get on an exercise bike, watching some comedy, laugh and ride and get your energy moving, right? Doing yoga, right? Going through my yoga practice is very helpful to lift my mood, to shift energy that is feeling stuck and stagnant and depressive. Doing my meditation in the morning is really important, and doing some journaling after meditation to affirm what I'm choosing, and also to give me an outlet to write about what I am depressed about, why I am feeling lonely. but always to choose, give yourself an outlet, but to always to choose to bring it around and to not allow yourself to end feeling like a victim of what you are feeling. Like I keep reminding myself, what I'm feeling is what I'm releasing. Wow, I'm really feeling really alone in the world right now. I'm really feeling that I'm, on a mission and I'm not feeling the support that I really feel that I need to. I know this is what I'm releasing. I know this is energies left over from my past. I write that. I simply write that. I know this is left over from the past. I know this is coming up to be released. I know that I am choosing my freedom. I am committed, right? Finishing off, I am committed to, right? Doing something to the awesome one, Jane. So another way is doing a little to help others is also a very good way to lift yourself out of a depressive mood, right? And that can be as simple as feeding the birds, right? Or doing something like that. Animals are great to work with because they're so unconditional and so uncomplicated, right? So feeding the birds, feeding the ducks, working with an animal for yourself, whether that be a dog or a cat or a guinea pig or a bird in a cage or whatever it might be, a goldfish even, whatever gives you an outlet to feel that you are serving something else. Like even a fish in a bowl, you feed it, right? And it comes up and it eats, and you can feel good about yourself. You're sustaining its life, right? All sorts of different opportunities to help keep you feeling purposeful. It helps to even remind yourself that in feeling depressed is purposeful. In releasing the past, the vibrations you are carrying from the past, you are doing so for your lineage in both directions. You're doing it for the whole of society. You're doing it for all who are involved in those situations. When you are brave enough to fully feel the repression from the past, fully feel the rejection that you received, fully feel the trauma that you went through in past times, it's very, very healing, not just for you, but for the whole of our collective. So bringing an attitude that you are being purposeful, letting go of the attitude that depression is wrong and somehow bad just because society doesn't appreciate the fact. I'm going to try and swipe that away. I did. Not buying into this idea that society makes you wrong for being quote unquote depressed and not being so productive. Let go of the idea of what productivity is. Let go of the rightness of productivity and allow yourself to feel purposeful in being willing to fully feel what many people aren't willing to feel. And to process it more fully than potentially most people can. Most people just want to distract themselves from depression, right? They want to get a pill that takes the depression away. They want to use television or whatever, or alcohol or something to overcome feeling depressed. They're not willing to go through the healing and the releasing process because they're scared that they're going to lose themselves in depression, right? And I understand depression can feel pretty scary, right? This aloneness can feel pretty scary. But the more that we can accept that we are, or the more that we can find confidence that we're not going to lose ourselves in that, the better off we are, right? The more authentically confident we become to face anything. And we don't get so easily overwhelmed by strong feelings, emotions anymore, that we can accept, wow, I'm really feeling an intensity with the depression that's arisen today, right? I'm really feeling intensely not good enough right now. And it doesn't overwhelm us so much because we have a confidence in who we be that we will just progress through it, even though it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. we can allow ourselves to feel purposeful in going through it anyway. So ironically, once we attain that state where the depression is not so wrong for us, it doesn't engulf us to nearly the same degree. It might be intense and it might be quite pertinent in our experience of a particular moment, but it doesn't tend to become all of us, right? We don't lose ourselves to the depression because we're maintaining a more empowered attitude towards it, where we see it for what it is, just vibration from the past arising to release, and therefore we don't contract around it, and therefore we don't get stuck in it, and we don't start fighting against it, and we don't make ourselves wrong for feeling it. I think that's the most important thing, right? Don't make yourself wrong for feeling these depressive or these dense feelings, emotions. Allow yourself to be okay that you're feeling that way. And even though society doesn't really recognize the benefit of what you are going through and doing, from a spiritual standpoint, you are certainly not failing in feeling these dense emotions. This is a necessary part of the process for us individually and collectively. And many of us, we have to recognize, are running energies for the collective, right? Many of us are running the repression through our being, through our experience, for the collective. This is our purpose. We don't need to suffer through that experience. Hey, Sister Anne, I'm coming towards the end of my time here. Jill said, I was feeling very low last week, and on Saturday I went out with some friends to a local town and stood with some yellow... Maybe I could find it down here. Let's just do a quick refresh on this. Not so easy for me to read it off the screen. Oh, well, that's not coming up quickly. Thank you, Facebook, for being so responsive. Here we go. Still with some yellow information boards, 30 of us. Then a very elderly guy with a Zimmer walker approached me, dressed up in his best military badged blazer, and said he wanted to thank me and my friends for what we were doing. He said it gave him renewed hope. He had just lost his wife after 63 years of marriage and was lost. I held hands with this stranger and felt very humble. His gratitude was a gift to me and my mood lifted. Yeah, that's an awesome story, Jill. That's an awesome story. So yeah, we do get rewarded when we step out of our comfort zone and go and do something that is potentially we're scared of doing as well, which is like standing up for our freedoms, which is what Jill was alluding to, right? Went out on the street with placards, basically to raise awareness around the fact that potentially we're losing a lot of our societal freedoms in what we're allowing ourselves to get mandated into. And surprisingly, where the admiration for that comes from, all walks of life. And you could see that, potentially an old guy could go either way. But anyway, it is heartwarming. Anyway, friends, that will probably do. Hopefully that's helped Michelle and others deal with these dense emotions, or whatever emotions, angry emotions as well. But emotions that we feel we quote unquote shouldn't be feeling, and we are feeling that they are overwhelming us right now. It's important that we find acceptance around them, and it's also equally important that we do external things to help us progress through them, right? Take care of ourselves. Prioritize your self-care, however that might look. Changing your diet. Eating foods that are, because there's lists of them, you can just Google foods that help with depression, right? And they help, getting proper levels of magnesium, B vitamins, etc., right? There's many ways that we can help ourselves with this experience, because it is a very biochemical experience, right? Especially as it stays for longer periods of time, right? We're all going to have hits of vibration arise, but when we get kind of stuck in the overwhelm of being depressed and feeling alone, and the mental narratives have taken hold, it's going to be beneficial to get some chemical help, right? And I'm not talking, artificial chemicals so much as just choosing to make sure you're getting the right levels of minerals and vitamins to help your brain chemistry as best as possible come back to a more neutral state, and to allow, yourself to receive the satisfaction that's available to you, right? Open your dopamine receptors back up, and look at potentially what numbing methods you have been using to cope, and see if you can't improve on those so that you use some better quality coping mechanisms such as exercise or creativity, etc., rather than distraction techniques such as binge watching television, etc., etc. And I'm not saying this about you necessarily, Michelle, but this is, generally where we see society go. People deal with their depression by, using alcohol, some other stimulant, smoking cigarettes, smoking other stuff, whatever it might be, binge watching television, all sorts of more less helpful habits. I don't want to say destructive habits, but less helpful habits. Dr. Mehan Keshi. I haven't actually heard of, not sure if that's a male or a female, Lewis, but I actually haven't heard of that person, so that's interesting. It's a him, his wisdom to come to mainstream. Awesome. I'm glad you've got your leaky roof fixed, Sister Jill. Anyway, friends, I've done my time. Much love to you all. We'll be back next week. Keep your chins up. Trust that what you're feeling is what you are releasing and not necessarily the truth of what is. So stay positive with it, right? And not toxically positive that you just try and coat everything with fucking sugar, but positive to the fact that everything that we're experiencing is actually giving us an opportunity to benefit, and be willing to find the benefit in it, even if it's still uncomfortable, right? Let go of the idea of having to be right based on how we've been trained, and allow ourselves to be authentic in what we are going through, and still be positive that it's not a wrongness. Anyway, my friends, much love. I will speak to you again next week, if not before. We do have our full moon coming up, and I think it is happening before next Wednesday. I think it's actually happening on Tuesday for me. Is that correct? Calendar. God, nothing's working quickly today. Full moon is happening on the Tuesday, so before our chat with Matt. So yeah, in 6 days' time, plus a couple of hours, we have our full moon call, which I will publicize as we get a little closer. Anyway, friends, much love. Go well. Be willing to recognize it as we come out of the weekend. We will be intensifying with the full moon. Don't make that wrong. Hey, Sister Kay, much love. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.